Welcome to How to Build a Roller Coaster. I chose Roaring Heights for this tutorial because it's the world that the roller coasters were made for. And I almost never play in Roaring Heights, so I think I'd like to make some more use of it, and that's the lot that we're going to build on. It starts out empty in my game because I have a mod that stops the lots from being automatically placed. Otherwise the boardwalk would be on this lot. To my dismay, the game chose to place the Weatherstone right in the middle of the lot, so I deleted it. And then I went into live mode and the game placed it in a different lot. I was happy with where it went the second time, so I left it alone. Whenever I build something in The Sims 3, I always use a testing sim because I like to test as I go. And this is Win Holden. When she first came into my game, her original name was Wiggles because she is an imaginary friend made real. And then I gave her a big makeover when she became real. And she's got an interesting personality, so she should be a lot of fun to help us along with building this new roller coaster. I've built about 7 roller coasters, and this is the first one I ever tried to build. It was built for Midnight Hollow, and this is in Midnight Hollow. And as you can see, it's a very dark world. There's 2 roller coasters on the lot, a purple roller coaster and a green roller coaster. Alice Hobson, a sim that I made in Create a Sim, is going to show us around the roller coaster. Just to give you a quick look so you get an idea of the sort of things that I build. Most of my roller coasters were built a long time before the carousel was released into the Sims 3 game, so I've got placeholders for them. This roller coaster and all of my other roller coasters are available on the exchange, in the Sims 3 exchange, and I have provided links to them in the description should you want to have a closer look. This is just a very quick overview. There's Alice heading up to see what she can find. As you can see, I just put random items in the buildings without anything that I think that the Sims might enjoy. When you build a roller coaster, you need a spot to put the roller coaster cart onto so that the Sims can get on and off. So that's the first thing I build. This is just a rectangular building. I think there's about 3 or 4 levels to it. Alice is going to go up and get into the cart and go for a ride. So there's 2 roller coasters in this roller coaster lot. The carts are on 2 different levels. So this is the lowest one. It's the first roller coaster, the green roller coaster. It's a very quick little ride for the Sims. They go through a few loops and various other bits and pieces, and then the ride is over when she returns to that building. And now she's going to go upstairs to the purple roller coaster, which is on the top of the building. I got this file from the folder that I've got my builds backed up onto, and I was interested to see that it doesn't have the bug where the roller coaster goes up and then back down again in reverse whenever it goes up an incline. So there, it just went straight up. Any roller coasters that I've built after a certain point, it will go up and then drop back to the beginning and then go up again. So something has happened in the intervening time that has added a bug. Anyway, that is a quick look through this roller coaster. Now we'll move on to another one, and I'll just give you a very short peek at the others that I've built. The next roller coaster was quite bright and colourful. It was a roller coaster where I decided I'd use all of the objects that I could that came from the Katy Perry Sweet Treats stuff pack, and I coloured the 2 roller coasters I built pink or mint green. This was built for a 50 by 50 lot. Most of my roller coasters go on 64 by 64 lots. Any objects that I used that didn't come with the Sweet Treats pack, I tried to recolour to go along with the theme, although I didn't recolour everything. My next roller coaster was also built in Sunlit Tides, but on a 64 by 64 lot. This is my Bluewaters roller coaster. It was built with a Christmas theme because in Australia, which is where I'm from, Christmas is in the middle of summer and people love to go out and go to the beach and have barbecues and spend lots of time swimming. There is a Christmas tree on the lot. There's only one roller coaster track on the Bluewaters Fun Park, but it takes the Sims for a really long ride. I've used this roller coaster park in several of my videos, particularly with the 30 Grandchildren series. And there's the Christmas tree. And then came Rolling Thunder. This was a bit ambitious, and although it is in my studio on the Exchange, I would not advise you adding it to your game. You're welcome to download it and have a look at it in a separate save where you've just got your sim and this monstrosity. It is massive. The idea came from a shopping centre in Brisbane that when it was first built back in the late 1980s, they had amusement park rides up in the top level of it. And I decided I wanted my Sims to have a shopping centre with a roller coaster in it. So the shopping centre has got restaurants and cafes and bars. It's got 3 roller coasters. I also wanted to have a roller coaster that went from the roof down to the basement, but that couldn't be done. But I did manage to get a separate or a third roller coaster in the basement. There's also savvy seller shops in there. I was going to have this as a thing to play in, and my Sims have lots of different savvy seller shops. Some of the shops are set up with items to sell, and others have just got the savvy seller shelves and registers and counters and nothing in them now that can be sold. A few people that downloaded it queried this and wanted to know why I hadn't finished it. Well, I had finished it. I wasn't planning to add anything to those shops. They were just there. If people wanted to add their own things, I don't think though that they would have been able to play it because there was so much in it already. This is the scary roller coaster that's downstairs. It's got the haunted house in it. I also built another little house on one of the levels. I don't think you can see it in the video, and it's got the door of life and death in it, and I put a copy of the Grim Reaper in there in my game. I don't think it's in the roller coaster that's in my studio on the Exchange. And of course all of the traps that came with the roller coaster, I've got them set up so it's the scariest monsters that come up to grab or pretend to grab the sim that's riding the roller coaster. The Sims can walk around in this area, but it's all very dark. You can just see where the roller coaster is because of the little flickering lights that are on it. I experimented by putting a mummy in a sarcophagus and setting a trap, but that only works once and then it's set, so I didn't worry about doing those sort of things anymore. There's a spiral staircase that comes down from a room above, and that's where the sim gets onto the scary roller coaster. But room's a bit scary as well. It's all set up with things that relate to spiders and whatever. So I think I'll let my sim now go for a ride on the roller coaster and let you have a bit of a look as he sails by on a few spots. It was a bit dark in there to follow him all the way around, so I just grabbed bits where you could see him. So there was a seal or a shark jumped up to frighten him in that little instant just there. And now he's going through some loops. And there's a big monster, pit monster or something in there that's Wave tried to grab him, but it missed him, so he was lucky there. And then he just went back to where he got on, so he got off in the same spot, and there he is getting off. And now we'll let him ride the roller coasters upstairs as well. You'll be able to see a lot better there. I'll take you quickly through this. There's a kitchen there where you can hire a chef. There's a library down at the back corner there, and this is just an open area like a food court where Sims can buy their food and come and sit out here to eat it. Those fish in those walls there, they are all fog emitters. So if you decide to try to break this down a bit to make it work a bit better for you, you might want to delete all of that. But it took me days to make. It was a huge effort, and there was no way I was leaving it out of the build. There are magic gnomes scattered all over this build as well. It's a great place to come if you want to collect a few gnomes. That one there was the mech gnome that came with Into the Future. You've got to find bits of it in the crashed ship in the wasteland and put it all together to make your gnome, to make your mech gnome. So there's plenty of empty spaces. I had to leave lots of empty spaces. That's the shops that I made, but that don't have any goods inside to sell. They're just set up, ready for you to put your own things in there. But I don't know if it would even load if you had all of them stuffed full of items for sale. I've only got one sim in here. The rest of the sims you see are all townies that have turned up of their own accord. This is that food court area. There's a few townies there having something to eat. And just there is a restaurant, and they've got the chefs. You can hire a chef there for that bistro oven. But above the restaurant they've got a games room where they can play all sorts of board games and other games there. There's a little bar in there as well, so they can get something to drink. And you'll find all sorts of things scattered around. Here's one of the little shops that has been set up. It's got the cafe bar where the Sims can go and get something to eat or drink. The savvy seller shops that are empty are over in that part of the build. There he is, he's just got into the roller coaster cart and that's moving off. We'll pick him up in a few spots as he goes around. We won't follow him through the whole of his ride. This track winds up and down and through all of the levels that are above ground. In this spot he goes outside the building and he drops straight down a couple of levels and goes along at ground level outside for a bit. Then he's straight back inside. Unfortunately, all of this area is seen as outdoors to the game, so if it's snowing outside they're going to be shivering, but that's just how it is. It's okay in the little shops, but this open area where the roller coaster is going in and out is not closed off. It's considered outdoors. And then he's got back to the spot where he gets off the roller coaster. I hope he enjoyed his ride. Now he's getting onto the cream coloured roller coaster and we will follow him around. See where he goes. In this bit coming up, you'll see how he jumps over the red track, and that's what should always happen, either they go under or over. I think if poor Wenzel never sees another roller coaster, he will be eternally grateful. He seems to be sick quite regularly when he comes off. And here is a couple of the shops that are full of stuff, all set up. But I think having all of the shops filled up like that would have been a bit much. So that's it for this roller coaster. I deleted most of the buildings from around the roller coaster tracks. The buildings you see on the right of the screen are what's left of the original Rolling Thunder build, and that tower on the left, I added that in extra. I just needed it for some reason that I've forgotten what that reason was now. I think it had something to do with access to the roller coaster. I didn't touch the scary roller coaster that is still in the basement, and you saw that in video of Rolling Thunder, so I won't show that again. I recoloured the 2 roller coasters that are above the ground level. I kept the fog emitter fish tanks. Actually, the tanks, it's just walls, 1 tile wide and lots of tiles long, with windows that you can see through, and I put the fog emitters in between the 2 walls, and it looks like fish in a fish tank. So if you have problems with this roller coaster and you download it from my studio, well then deleting those fish fog emitters could solve your problems, or would help to solve your problems. This is one of my favourite roller coasters that I use in some of my video series, and it is in Moonlit Falls for the series on the Perfect Genetics Challenge. I thought the roller coaster tracks looked a bit odd just floating in the air, so I chose the twinkling tree columns from the alfresco market venue to make it appear as if the tracks have some support. I had to use a timber tile in places because I needed columns taller than 3 levels to be able to cope with the height of the tracks in some places. Those columns are available in 1, 2 and 3 level heights. After Island Paradise was released, somebody, I don't know who, but somebody in the forums challenged me to see if I could build a roller coaster that was over the water, because this person didn't believe it was possible. So of course I had to have a go, and this is the result. It contains a showtime stage and it has got seasonal markers. A few things change with the seasons. For example, the skating rink will turn into an ice skating rink. Not sure what else happens, but there will be a few changes as the seasons change. There are some bakery items on it as well that came with the bakery. It's on a 40 by 40 lot in Isla Paradiso. It should go on any world, so long as you've got part of it on the land and part of it in the water, but it might prove a bit difficult sometimes to get it to actually sit nicely on every lot. It's quite a small roller coaster, and my sim Wenzel had a very quick ride on it. The little yellow rubber duckies in the fountain are a fog emitter that I've added. I added random items throughout, just things that I thought at the time would be fun, had to fill it up with something. There's a carousel there, it actually is the carousel. A lot of the items came with seasons. Showtime stage there. You might need to add extra lights to that room. There's some magic items in that little round tent that he's just gone into. That's the foundation, so it's all those piles, so you should just be able to plonk it down on any lot. This roller coaster is in my studio, so you can download it from the exchange if you want to. The link will be in the description. And you might as well meet Wenzel. He's my latest witch. He's not going to go up onto the exchange because he's full of custom content. I stopped putting things onto the exchange when I started adding mods and custom content to my games. That's when there's nothing much up there that's recent. The most recent things were when I set up a new computer a few years ago and made some sims after I had only installed the base game. So I'd have base game only sims. Finally, the Magic Gnome's Magical Treasure Park is in my studio on the exchange, and Wenzel's back showing it to us. He's gone for a ride in the roller coaster. This is another fairly short ride, and this roller coaster lot has got a lot of things in it, but it doesn't use up the memory that some of the earlier ones I built have. It's got a showtime stage in a big tent, and it's got the balloon from Aurora Skies. He'll go for a balloon ride at the end. And there's a tractor track with some fruit trees, bowling alley, dance floor, bakery, shop where they can go and buy baked items, swimming pools, another magic tent. Oh yes, he's a bit sick. He doesn't seem to do well with these roller coaster rides, poor old Wenzel. I think he's thrown up after just about every one of them. I'll just give you a quick look from overhead to give you a general idea of what's in it. That small squarish building in the centre of the screen that's all black inside, that's got traps in it and lots of mirrors, and that's where a sim can find a magic gnome if they inspect some holes in the floor. And then we'll get on to the tutorial. Since you've watched all of these videos, if you're still with me, congratulations, I'm pleased to hear that. You'll now have a good idea of what is required, and I'll just quickly go through the steps, so you should be able to make your own roller coasters with your own things in them fairly easily, because there really isn't much to it. I'll just send Wenzel up in the balloon. He will just go up and have a drink and do a bit of sightseeing and then come straight back down again. I find if you go off and fly to another lot, you don't land successfully. The balloon's gone from here. I mean, you land successfully on the other lot, but when you try to come back here, it doesn't come back to the landing spot. So I just go up and let them look around and then let him land. He's decided to enjoy his glass of champagne first, but he will land. We'll see him do it. But he's going to do some sightseeing as well by the look of it. When you want to tell him what to do while he's in the balloon basket, you click on the basket, not onto the sim. And the active sim will do whatever you tell him to do. I've had up to 2 sims in the balloon at one time. He's now going to land. And so that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Now I'm going to go through the steps of building a basic roller coaster. I'm not going to decorate it, I'm just going to build the roller coaster. The first thing I do when building, especially something as complicated as a roller coaster, is I will flatten the lot and then I'll cover it with a free wood floor to keep it flat. This lot appeared to be completely flat when I first got to it, but when I clicked flatten lot button, I noticed that the lot had actually been slightly undulating. Now it's important when you put your floor in that you start in one corner and you do the entire lot in one fell swoop. If you don't manage it, undo it and try again, because you've got to keep the lot flat, otherwise you're going to have lots of tears as you continue with your build, because if your lot isn't absolutely flat, it's just not going to work. The reason for the wood floor is to stop it from warping and becoming uneven as you build. It starts to get little dips and crevices and mounds in it as you add build items to it. Then I like to add a 4-tile border all around in a different colour, just so I know where the edges are. And all of this wood tiles will be deleted when their building is complete. Now we're going to look at the pieces that are available in the roller coaster build. You find them in bind mode in the outdoor items list and click on the car for transport. And I usually filter on store because they're all store items. Now the first one I don't really use very much. It is just a little archway. Doesn't even seem to need a support, it's just hanging there in space. And this is the single story complicated support for the curve, and that is a single story support that you can have the roller coaster go through that one, and that's one that you can't pass through. And the single story support for the straight piece. Now we've got a double story support for the curve, and that's the curve. This is where the sims get on and off. You need to put the cart on it. That's the straight piece of track, and that is the double story support for the straight piece of track. Just put it over there, and then you've just got that's double story support for the track. Now this little bit that is going to dip up and down, and I'll just build a little building for it. Give it a wooden floor. That's because the wood floors are free. Not that it matters if you're building in Edit Town, because the money won't come out of your sim's bank balance. But if you've clicked build on this lot, well then your sim will be paying for everything. That little piece is important because it lets your sim travel up or down one level on the roller coaster. Now we got to the 3-story high support for the curve, and the 3-story high support for the straight track, and a 3-story column support. All of these supports are stackable. And then there are about 6 special items that have arrows on them, and they must be placed with the arrows facing in the direction that you want the roller coaster cart to travel. The broken track, the roller coaster cart will leap high into the air when crossing it, and a creature will leap up out of the water to scare the sim. The sim in the cart will drop 2 stories over the dead man's drop. The geyser run is a wobbly path through geysers shooting up bubbles or water or flames, depending on how you've set it up. The next 2 pieces with arrows are the loop and the hulking hump. The initial piece that sets the direction is the loading zone, the bit where the sim gets onto the roller coaster cart. In live mode, you can click on some of the pieces and set the theme. The choices are wonder, thriller or haunted, and you get different coloured water and different animations as the sim goes over them. Now let's look at those arrows. They flicker for you so you can see the direction that the cart will be travelling. And if you don't have them all pointing in the correct direction, then the roller coaster track is invalid and it won't work. This was at this point that I realised I hadn't put the hump out. And there's the hump, and it too has directional arrows. All of the tracks are recolorable, and now I'm going to start assembling a roller coaster with the pieces. I'll try to use all of the pieces so that you can see how they work. The first piece to place is the loading zone, and you must place it with its arrows pointing in the direction that you want the roller coaster to run in. And it is 18 tiles long, so you need to have a space that is at least 18 tiles long, longer if possible, and has enough room at the end for your Sim's roller coaster to continue on. I like to mark it out with the free wood tiles before I start building, just to make sure it's all going to fit and there's enough space before and after the ends of the loading zone. I like to put my roller coaster loading zones on a higher level. I don't like it on the ground, so I build a small building and place the tracks above it. So I've got to leave enough room in that building to place a staircase so the Sims can get up to. And I wasn't going to do any decorations, but I thought I'd better give my Sim a place to get out of the sun. I don't want her turning into a pile of ashes as she waits for me to finish working on the roller coaster outdoors. I placed the loading zone on the roof of this little building with the arrows pointing so that the roller coaster would be running towards the ocean. And then I wanted it to step up one more level, so I placed a little column there for a two-story column and put the little jump up piece on it. And then I added the support for the curve before putting the curve piece of track on there. Then I fiddled with it to make sure it all lined up. There's a lot of fiddling with the supports to get the tracks to go on them successfully. Funny thing is, once you've got the track set up, you don't need the supports, but they have to go on to get the tracks to go on. So don't worry about all that space being taken up with the supports. You can just delete them afterwards if you don't want them there. The supports for the roller coaster are the best ones to use when building a roller coaster, but you can replace them with any sorts of columns. It's just that once you need to start stacking columns on top of one another, you need to put a tile between them, and that can look a little bit unsightly. The maximum height that you can go to is by stacking a 3-level support with a 2-level support on top. So the 5 levels. Once you get to the point where the little squares on top don't show anymore, well then you know you've gone too high. Sometimes you've just got to persist if you want to get something lined up on top like that. And remember, don't worry if you've got to put extra supports that you have in places where you don't want them. Just use the support to get your track connected and then get rid of the support if you don't want it there. The important things are to get the track lined up. Each piece of track must be lined up exactly and meeting exactly, and you must make sure those arrows, where the pieces have got arrows, that those arrows are pointing in the direction that the roller coaster is going to run. I'm going to get the roller coaster to do a circuit of the lot, and then I'll make it turn back on itself so that I can get to show you how the pass-through one-story column works. In my desire to complicate this so I could show you how that pass-through stand works, I managed to get it to the point where I had to reduce the size of the building so that it was exactly the same length as the loading zone. The one-story pass-through support is on the left and the one-story ordinary support is on the right. And all I wanted to do was show you how the pass-through support is used. And that meant I had to circle around in the middle here with the roller coaster to get it to use a pass-through support. And when I did that, suddenly it was all the dimensions of the building were out by a couple of squares, a couple of tiles. So I had to shorten it and move everything around a little bit, like about 2 tiles, just so I could get that to work. I recoloured it black so you could see how the roller coaster will pass through that support. Anyway, here is how to put the hump into place. You need to use a few of the support. I'm using double-story supports at this point. There are 4 spots under that hump that I find needs support. Or you could use that long straight track support, one of those supports at each end of it, or you could use, like I've done, 4 of the column supports just to get it to sit there. Once you've got it sitting there, you can take them away. You can get rid of any of the supports that are going to be in your way or that you don't like the sight of. Just check that it is actually lining up properly with the previous piece of track, and that if it's got arrows on it, that you must make sure those arrows are pointing in the direction that your roller coaster is going to travel in. Just get it lined up properly. There it is. Now get ready for a curve because we're getting close to the edge of the lot. You could just as easily use just the column supports for the curves. It's just that I'm doing this at the moment. It helps me see where the curve is going to go. Of course, in an ideal situation, I would have sat down with a piece of paper with 64 squares on it and shaded in all of the tiles for each of the track pieces and where they were going to be placed, so I would know exactly where everything belongs in the lot before I started adding any buildings or pieces of track. Now I'm getting ready to climb up a couple more levels. If you do decide to plan your roller coaster properly before you start building, the little piece I'm going to use here to raise up to the next level is exactly the same number of tiles length as the piece of straight track. I want to take the roller coaster up to level 5, so there's going to be 3 consecutive climbing pieces right here to get to a really high point, the highest point in the whole roller coaster ride, and I'll put the loop up really high. At first we've got to place these 3 little climbing pieces, and I think they're the hardest pieces to place in all of the track pieces in the roller coaster, but they do get easier with practice. So it's a good idea to put a few of them in your first roller coaster. After that, once you can do that, you can do anything. They're the exact same length as the straight piece of track. So you could just line up a straight piece of track with supports and then delete that straight piece of track, put a higher support there, and then add your little rising piece. As you can see, I've got supports stacked here now to get up high enough, and I'm able to remove the lower support without anything objecting, so you can just delete those supports if you don't want them there. The roller coaster will still work just fine. Now I'm going to add a support for the highest level, so it'll be a 3-story support with 2-story support on top of it, and when I place it on top you can see those little squares on top. That shows you that it is a valid place to build. So if I was to stack 2 3-story supports, those little squares wouldn't be there and you wouldn't be able to put any track pieces up to the top. So this is as high as you can go with the roller coaster. As you may have noticed, I'm constantly changing my view from side on to top down. This is because of just trying to get everything lined up. you need to look at it from both angles, from side on and from top down. Looking from top down, you can't tell what level you're placing anything onto, and sometimes those supports are sitting on top of a little flying square and you want them on the wood. Now, placing the loop is very similar to placing the hump. You need to put some supports under it in a couple of places, and you also must be certain that the arrows are pointing in the direction of the travel of the roller coaster. Just checking to be sure that the curve will fit, and it will. So now I've just got to put the supports under everything. It's always good to remember that poor preparation and planning will result in poor performance of your roller coaster. In this instance, I didn't plan it well enough and I needed to move everything about 1 or 2 tiles to the left. And then I found I didn't have to move them after all, but I'd already done the move before I discovered that. It's best to look down from the above to make sure it is lined up properly, because from the side view it is just guesswork, and it is really annoying having to fix up a track once you've finished it. It's best to make sure it is all in line correctly as you go. Now to put the 2-story supports for the dead man drop. It actually drops 3 stories. I just checked, and it will require a couple of 2-story supports under it because it's dropping down from the 5th story. When you've placed it, check from above to make sure that the track is lined up with the curved track before it, and that its arrows are pointing in the direction of the travel for the roller coaster. And now we're going to put in the piece of broken track. This piece has got arrows that you must facing the correct direction, the direction of travel, and when the roller coaster travels over it, it will be shot up into the air, and a shark or a pit monster tentacle and something else, I might be a seal, I'm not sure, but something jumps up to try to grab the sim and it frightens them. It just needs 2 supports there, and you've got to make sure it's lined up with the previous track. So that is now all lined up, and its arrows are pointing in the correct direction of travel, and it's getting close to the end, and it is this point that I decided that I needed to make it turn back on itself so we could demonstrate the piece of pass-through track. So I'll cut to, I was thinking that broken track would probably look a bit more believable if it was on top of a little building, because where is that shark or monster jumping up from? I've already showed you how to place all of the bits of the track, so I'll cut a heap out here now. This video is going to be way too long otherwise, and I'll show you how I've finished it off, and then we'll test the track and have a little sim riding the roller coaster. And about to drop down the dead man's drop over the broken track where the seal jumped up at her, then there's straight on over some straight track through the pass-through piece that I added there, around a bit of a loop, and then back over another piece of the broken track, and then she's just going to go straight home to the loading zone where she can get off. Now from this angle you'll be able to clearly see the 1-story pass-through support that I've recolored black, and it's right in the middle of the roller coaster there, and she's going to ride it around once more, and we'll see her go through that, and then it'll be the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it and you have got some value out of it. Yeah, there's a few bugs with some of these tracks. I've discovered that some themes are bugged a lot worse than others. This is on Wonder. I've got the pieces all set to Wonder. I discovered that this roller coaster gives her a much smoother ride set to Wonder. One of the other 2 settings, she's really thrown around in the sky for a while before she continues on her ride. It's just a bug that got introduced at some point. Now I'll just quickly show you how to test for a valid track. So I broke the track just there, and you click on the rails and say test for valid track, and you see how it goes green all the way around until it gets to where the track is broken, and then you can find it easily, and then you just got to fix it so that it's not broken and test again, and the next time you do it it'll be valid. And your sim will tell you as well. If you look in the top right hand corner of the screen, you get a little message. So there, it's all green now, the whole track. And just one final thing in case you aren't aware of this, all you need to do to get rid of all that timber flooring is to highlight a timber floor, tile, hold down your shift key and your control key, then mouse click onto a floor tile of the colour that you wish to delete en masse. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you've got something of value out of it. If you have, well, please give it a like and maybe subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and leave comments. They will help with the channel with YouTube. So bye bye for now, and happy simming, and good luck with your roller coaster building.